Hello, role-playing people, and in this episode, given that I've badmouthed the factions long enough, we're going to talk about the advantages of being in a faction, how members of that group are most likely to behave, and how said advantage might come into actual play. Each of these groups has its own merits and perks members can use or call upon, so let's see what those are and if they are worth it. Starting with cryptics. As mentioned in previous episodes, cryptics collect true names both sides of the pit. The Crucianomicon currently contains the locations and reliquary types of 11 earthbound demons, 6 of which are also known by celestial name, which of course led to the identification of their former house and position during the Age of Wrath, besides other information and speculation. No true names are known in entirety at this point, but we can assume the cryptics should have at least a few syllables for each. Now, the Celestinomicon contains general information such as mortal name, celestial name, role in creation, position and rank during the war for a good 70% of all of the fallen. 70%! That is not a negligible percentage, alright? So the cryptics have managed to keep tabs on other fallen worldwide just by letting their agents do their own thing and report their findings to the Central Celestinomicon Committee. It's worth noting this classified information, these two books, as they are called in order to mislead others, don't really come in the form of a bound collection of pages, a folder, or a digital text file somewhere. No. This classified information is kept by the librarians, a collection of 14 fallen, 2 from each house, who memorized this information word by word, who compare and update the information based on new reports. 7 librarians, 1 from each house, have memorized the Celestinomicon, and the other 7 have memorized the Crucianomicon. Of course, the identities of these librarians are a huge secret within the faction, and when other members of the cryptics request information from these guys, they do so through quaesitors, each quaesitor knowing the identity of and being able to contact only 4 librarians, 2 for one book, 2 for the other. We can imagine when a request for information is submitted to a quaesitor via invocation or other means, they will contact the others and bring to their attention the fact that, let's find a quick name here, Alglibiel, the malefactor, is requesting some info. Of course, Alglibiel will have to wait for the quaesitor's decision to reveal or not reveal the data he is after. So, players, don't count on that information to be revealed on the spot. Moreover, if Alglibiel is fresh out of the pit and hasn't made a name for himself just yet, or doesn't have any eminence to recommend him, the other cryptics might be reticent to share sensitive information with a nobody. He can easily be an infiltrated agent of another faction. Alglibiel needs to prove himself first, and the best way to do that is by trading information about himself and others. Even if the quaesitors or librarians already have that information, fresh cryptics should always show their willingness to collaborate by compiling folders on other fallen in the city and finding the fastest, most secure way of delivering that information to a cryptics committee. This is where joining a court comes in very useful, because the court itself provides a means of interacting with and getting to know others in a city, especially those of your own faction. You never know which gesture or word or dietary habit or interaction with a thrall can provide hints about another's name, so new cryptics should keep tabs on everyone. If the information they provide the committee is solid, then you can bet the quaesitors will be inclined to aid our fresh cryptic Alglibiel with the information he seeks. Maybe he has a question about the fate of his wartime lover. Maybe the name of someone in the local court sounds so very familiar, but our malefactor cannot remember a darn thing about them. The Quisitors reveal this fallen was Alglibiel's mortal enemy during the war and has sabotaged our malefactor on 2 separate occasions, which led to his demotion. Good, now you know not to put your trust in that individual, because if they remember your shared history, they're probably still out to get you. In light of all of this, playing a cryptic is very rewarding. Now, a few quick tips for storytellers out there. Cryptic players might be tempted to over-request information from members of the Central Committee or Quisitors at all hours of day and night, but it should be made perfectly clear that harassing a Quisitor with invocations will cause a loss of reputation or even bring about punishment. These are the info dealers of the cryptics, the bureaucrats and bosses, as it were. They're not going to constantly be at the disposal of Joey Nobody who just got out of the pit and is, in his stupidity, banging his chest and making demands. No. Using the cryptic's information network takes a bit of time, at least a few in-game days, and it should be used at reasonable hours because the fallen also need their sleep and privacy, and if they have families, their families also need their sleep and privacy. So make sure your players request information with courtesy and etiquette, and then you decide what to give them. There really is no need to have an entire network of cryptic Quisitors written down or make sheets for them, or even think too hard on how to roleplay them, because their purpose is to gather and reveal information to those who seek it. As such, treat them like contacts, and from personal experience, the more mysterious they are, the better, provided their information is accurate, of course, and they're not trying to sabotage Alglibiel with false information, which is, of course, going to make any player suspicious and will probably lead them to investigate the deceitful Quisitor. So, do not let your players get passive and rely on the information of others. As cryptics, they are the agents who go out and gather info. They are the eyes and ears of the organization and should not take a back seat in this matter. Moving on to Luciferans, where cryptics behave like college students working on one thesis or another and bringing their findings to the attention of the coordinating professor. The Luciferans are an army in the proper sense of the word. They are currently divided into 3 legions: the Legion of Majestic Liberation, which makes up the info gatherers of the army of Lucifer, employing similar tactics to the cryptics; the Legion of Glorious Victory, which is currently pretty disorganized in absence of one clear unifying directive; and the Legion of Stark Defiance, which basically maintains the other legions, pretty much handling routine things like resource acquisition, setting up communication networks and safe houses, or establishing sources of faith. Oh, and what a great job they are doing, since they managed to get their hands on at least one diamond mine, which makes their finances easy to transport and, above all, legal. So they have a very strong financial backing, a strict hierarchy which allows them to channel their efforts on one particular operation or another, and of course they have squads of well-equipped soldiers who will get their hands dirty if need be. The way I see Luciferans handling things is with discipline and collaboration, which is why, in order to make players feel like they are part of an army, they occasionally receive orders from superiors who might not even be in the same city, but on the plus side, if they are competent and successfully complete these tasks, they might receive better equipment in the form of enhanced relics or even increase in rank, which would allow them to coordinate and issue orders to other Luciferans in their city. Having underlings you can count on is a really great thing in Demon. It might just save your skin. Now, if we consider the novel trilogy, we can see inspiring and competent Luciferian leaders can actually leave their soldiers with summoning instructions, without revealing too much of their true names, of course. Thus, if you are a reliable Fallen who gets things done, your squad, or maybe even your legion, might care enough to return you from the pit and into a suitable host, in the unpleasant event of being dispatched from your current one. Honor and competence is something this faction values a lot, despite plenty of internal tension. Advice for storytellers: encourage your players to choose a legion too for their protagonists, and make sure your Luciferian NPCs give them appropriate objectives based on that choice. Not everyone needs to be part of the Legion of Glorious Victory. All Luciferians can fight for their lives if need be, but not all of them are legendary warriors whose feats of heroism have shaken the pit. There is a place for everyone in Lucifer's army. And because the protagonist might receive orders that can be difficult to follow, leading them to do unpleasant things which might ramp up their torment in the process, make sure the reward of their success matches their losses. Moving on to Faustians. This faction is currently capitalizing on having deceived everyone that they are way more powerful than they actually are, which is keeping them relatively safe and in the game. They somehow managed to spread the rumor that they found the remains of a dead cherub, or fashioned powerful artifacts from its remains, and while this gives reconcilers, ironically, some hope that the host aren't gone for good, it couldn't be further from the truth. They did, however, manage to recover 2 fragments of Michael's flaming sword, which was broken during the siege of Genhinnom, and they did reshape those fragments into some pretty impressive weaponry, but by far, the Faustians' greatest resource is their grasp on mortal assets, but mostly mortal culture. In order to properly harness the faith of humans, they need to reignite that faith first, and the best way to do so is by controlling the media everyone consumes, and feed them a narrative which will awaken them to their true potential once more. Now, to say all Faustians are abusive of humanity was a gross generalization on my part in previous episodes, since it only illustrates the negative aspects, their traumas, as it were. Indeed, there are 2 major sides within the Faustians, the side of Belphegor and the side of Senivel. Where Belphegor is embittered by humanity's weakness, but also jealous of the love that they have always received from the giver, Senivel is a humanist who believes her cause is just, and awakening mortals to their repressed divine potential is the right way to fix the cosmos. Though tensions are felt between the 2 leaders and their followers, Senivel knows better than to provoke Belphegor, who is a warlord and has powerful artifacts at his side. If she can't outgun him, she hopes to outsmart him, which is why she is meticulous but very much open to recruiting other Faustians to her cause. Whether it's done with kind or abusive intentions in mind, what's clear is Faustians are manipulative, and they rely on their mortal assets. Like the Kindred in Vampire the Masquerade, we can imagine they hide behind the people they influence. They use such mortal assets for keeping themselves safe while also spreading their influence. It's quite unlikely that player characters will be given access to the 2 powerful relics Belphegor hoards, so the way I see Faustian protagonists being rewarded by their faction is by being granted access to the highest quality candidates for pacts. Remember now, devils can easily detect stores of faith all around themselves by using the Lore of Celestials, Lamp of Faith. Thus, while the other houses or other factions might have difficulty finding the right people to start a pact with, Faustian devils not only go for the sure thing, but they can guide others into finding suitable candidates for pacts. When the majority of fallen in your faction don't need to worry about how they're going to get their faith tomorrow, you know they're doing something right for sure, and you know their evocations are going to hit like a truck, since they can always pull a little something extra from their pacts, which is a very nice perk to have in Demon the Fallen. We move on to the Reconcilers. By far, the Reconciler's greatest strength is their understanding of torment, because it seems other Fallen simply aren't aware that committing certain deeds brings them closer to the madness and agony of the pit. In Vampire the Masquerade, entire sects talk about the importance of maintaining your humanity. In Mage the Ascension, paradox is a known issue for the Awakened, and they find creative ways of circumventing it. In Demon the Fallen, however, a lot of those who are out of the abyss don't really seem to be aware of the fact that torment is a serious issue and might lead to their downfall. They know, based on their host memories, that they shouldn't do some things because it's going to hurt other mortals or it's going to get them in trouble with the law, but they do them anyway because their faction ordered them to, or because an earthbound is coercing them, or simply because they believe it's the only way of acquiring faith, reaping in very aggressive ways. They cannot fully comprehend the impact hurting others has on their minds and souls, and they don't really talk about it. Well, the introspective Reconcilers noticed a visible change in those who simply give in to their darker impulses, and they figured out, oh, there's something there. The way things are presented in the Storyteller's Companion, they seem to be the only faction which has become aware of this, that torment is an issue. Being kind and empathetic isn't just something they do because they're nice, it's something they do because their sanity depends on it. And believe it or not, just like there's at least one Ravener infiltrated among the Faustians, there's a Reconciler infiltrated among the Raveners, teaching a small group of them about the perils of torment and encouraging them to only reap from murderers and rapists. Surprisingly, this is working so well that his, air quotes, flock is actually thinking of defecting to the Faustians or Cryptics. When it comes to assets, Reconcilers have a powerful relic consisting of 3 links of a slaver's chain. Their links can only be used to bind devourers for now, but if they can figure out how to replicate and alter the effect, they can bind fallen of any house. When the link touches the target, it paralyzes them until said link is removed. And it does so in quite a dramatic fashion, since it alters their appearance, their physical substance. A malefactor becomes an inert stone statue. A defiler's water freezes in their body, turning them into a human-shaped icicle. A slayer becomes a helpless cloud of smoke, and so on. Not only this, but the Reconcilers found these chain links in a pocket dimension in France, and might be slowly becoming aware of other layers of creation that most other Fallen are unfamiliar with, which is really nice. The way I see this faction staying in the game long term is by expanding their influence with both mortals and the Fallen, teaching them about torment, encouraging them to change their ways, and by seeking out or maybe even crafting more links of this powerful chain which bind and disable others. There's no need to fight another Fallen and risk your host body if you can just bind them, take them to HQ, and, see what happens to them from that point on. Replicating these non-destructive relics would give Reconcilers a huge advantage long term. Moving on to Raveners. Where Cryptics make good intel gatherers and record keepers, The Raveners make good spies and infiltrators, at least those who are not devourers. Though I feel like this faction is a little underwritten and they don't have as many advantages as the other factions, they are far from unplayable. They have really good small tactic units, though they are considerably less centralized and well-equipped than Luciferans. In feeling like they have nothing to lose, they make for very confident and cunning combatants. And indeed, there is no tactic they won't employ to get the job done, no matter how much torment they acquire in the process. On the downside, their superiors know they are disposable and treat them like they are disposable, because they are. But as we've seen a little earlier, they can be converted and tempted to join other factions. When it comes to assets, they have a bastion at the bottom of the Atlantic Ocean, which, wouldn't you know it, is full of artifacts and weapons, but by far their most powerful asset is their ability to spy on the invocations of other demons. The Storyteller's Companion doesn't make it clear if this is a ritual or simply a powerful variation of the invocation any fallen can perform, but either way, it allows the user of this technique to listen in on all of a target's invocations. That is insanely powerful as long as you have really valuable celestial names to use it on, because you can use it on faction leaders, powerful earthbound, you name it. Pretty much on anyone except Lucifer. And well, that's pretty much it. Like I said, the Raveners are underwritten, but if I may share some ideas of my own on this matter, I think their most powerful asset should be their nothing to lose attitude, but also rituals. So cryptics have info network and names, Faustians have cultural influence and pacts, which can boost the effects of their invocations, Luciferans have insane resources, whether it's financial or very solid equipment, and they have a strict military hierarchy, which means, based on your eminence and rank, you can command and coordinate other fallen, giving them tasks or missions. And reconcilers have knowledge of torment, which gives them influence with the other factions, knowledge of hidden pocket realms, and they also have powerful relics. So are you telling me the only thing Raveners have is infiltration, one bastion, and a single invocation tapping technique that is known only to 2 of their highest ranking members? Yeah, according to the book, only 2 of their highest ranking members can use this technique, and they're not teaching anyone else. I think Raveners should have a clearly defined advantage, like, let's say, rituals. Rituals can have a lot of effects, from healing and protecting participants to summoning elementals, to storing mortal souls in gardens and plants, perfect for devourers and slayers, or to simply hurting others and causing massive destruction. Rituals are also a perfect collective tool for a small tactical unit to employ. So why doesn't any faction make consistent use of rituals? In my own Demon the Fallen games, this honor goes to the Raveners, and their ability to listen in on the invocation of others is treated as a ritual the player characters can also learn. I think it's a fair trade for the fact that they frequently have to lie about their allegiance, or if they just present themselves as Raveners, they will be regarded with serious prejudice by members of a court and all of the other factions. That being said, these are the perks of joining factions, and as we can clearly see, there definitely are incentives for being part of one. Thank you very much for listening. Take care, have fun, and don't forget to play.